Hello and welcome to the Fintech panel for the 2025 Mesa East Valley Technology Expo. My name is Bob Nelson. I am the Director of Communications for the Mesa Chamber of Commerce, and I am kind of coordinating our discussion today. We have gathered a couple of fantastic specialists in the financial world to sit and talk to today. So I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves.
Yeah, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. My name is Kahri Thompson. I'm a financial advisor with Edward Jones. My office is right here in Mesa, Arizona, and really what I do is I help individuals and business owners get organized and plan for retirement. I'm excited to be a part of this panel today to talk about Fintech. And for me, it's always been, let's pair some good tools with even better relationships. So thanks for asking me to be here, Bob.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here as well. My name is Josh Flake. I've been in the commercial finance world for about a little over 10 years now. Both on the broker as well as the banker side of the table, so a little bit of both. I currently work for Gateway Bank out in Mesa, Arizona as the Chief Credit Officer, and so really we specialize in working with businesses, all different sizes here locally, anything that they need to expand or grow their business.
Cool. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So, Fintech's like a word that has this huge universe, right? Like everybody can attach something to Fintech. So let's start with giving each of you kind of the opportunity about how you see Fintech in the context of your work. Yeah. So, Kahri?
Yeah. So with Edward Jones, we use AI research tools, and they're updated in real time to kind of give us information on stocks and funds. This is really helpful for, when we're trading during a certain day. When a client calls in, I can give them up-to-date information on a company, on a fund. And that's actually new. It used to be, quarterly reports that came out, or if something happened with a company or with a fund, we got that. So that's something that they've adapted at Edward Jones. And then also we have just amazing financial planning tools, and how we use those is, social security claims, as well as, looking at what the dollar will be in the future with inflation. So what your retirement dollar will really be worth. So those are some of the ways in my business that I'm able to use Fintech, but really what I see for my clients is them using it for back of office, right? They're using QuickBooks, payroll, all of that, and it's making them more streamlined, so when they come and see me, we have better processes kind of to move forward.
Yeah, along those similar lines, as a local community bank, we're not on the development side of any Fintech products. So a lot of times we find ourselves on the end user side. So whether that's internally for our employees to streamline processes or make things a little bit easier on the internal side, or externally for our customers, we have a lot of Fintech products that we use to increase online banking services or make things a little bit better for our customers. One of the things we're doing right now is launching a new loan origination software that's going to affect both sides, actually. So it's going to make things a lot easier for our employees to get answers back to customers on loans a lot quicker. It's also going to make the process of submitting documents for the customers quicker. So that Fintech solution will help on both sides.
Cool. So I'm gonna reorder the questions in my head because Kahri touched on something, which was the dollar, and I kind of want to touch on cryptocurrency because, it's in the headlines almost every day, right? There's either some sort of new investment product surrounding cryptocurrency, or there's a new cryptocurrency or something like that. But here in Mesa, Arizona, walking down Main Street, we don't necessarily, we're not using crypto in daily transactions that I know of. I don't know if you are, Josh.
I'm not, no.
But talk a little bit about that. What is that? How is that going to manifest itself eventually in that we'll all have little crypto wallets and we'll all be doing transactions? Or will it always be kind of like an investment product, kind of like gold or, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a good question, and obviously nobody has a crystal ball to know for sure. There's a lot of different debate on both sides of that topic. As a banker, I wouldn't say I'm against cryptocurrency, but I would say we're definitely a lot more cautious when it comes to cryptocurrencies. And so there's certainly, you look at Bitcoin and a lot of the other cryptocurrencies you hear of that are very volatile. And so that's where banks and more conservative institutions do have more of a cautionary kind of stance on those. But then you look at other options like stable coins, which we talked a little bit about in prepping for this. And those certainly have a lot less volatility because they're actually backed by something. It's not just the market that's driving that value. And so I think those are a lot more likely to have kind of more of a permanent place in financial transactions, especially for businesses that are on a global scale. You know, a lot of the businesses I work with are smaller local businesses where, you know, paying somebody through an ACH or a wire or cash is not really an issue. But if you're doing business all over the world with different currencies, different manufacturers, vendors, customers even, the stablecoin can be a really good avenue to kind of bridge some of those gaps and make those payment processes easier.
Kahri?
Yeah, and I completely agree with Josh. I mean, here in my community and with Edward Jones, you know, we've been around for over 100 years and we're very conservative. And they just recently just started publishing things on Bitcoin, digital currencies. And really, you know, what I saw from the investment side is when I'm reading what type of client is eligible to look at those investments, it's someone who has a very high net worth, someone who has a lot of experience with the stock market. So for me and kind of a lot of my everyday clients, my business owners, you know, when my client who comes to me who owns a bakery and they go, oh my gosh, do I need to offer this? I always say, well, does it solve a problem in your business? And really, if it doesn't solve a problem, then there's no need for it right now. I also think another big thing there is, as business owners, we kind of always gamble on ourselves, right? We made a gamble to become a business owner and bet on ourselves. But for a solution, I would never want it to feel like a gamble. And in my mind, sometimes I feel like, wow, this is such a gambling type of investment that why would I gamble with a solution? So those are kind of my viewpoints on it. Right now, it hasn't affected any of me and my small mom and pop businesses.
So I'm going to ask this more from, it's a little bit of a deviation from the list of questions that I gave you. And it kind of talks to stablecoin a little bit. But could an argument be made that the dollar is a legitimate digital currency now? I mean, majority of us have direct deposit. We manage our money electronically through our phone. We make payments through our computer. Like, we're not handling cash in the same way that we have for the last, 200 years or whatever. Is it legitimate to start to think of the dollar as a digital currency, or is there something that definitely defines that as this is not versus it is?
Yeah, so I actually just had talked to a client about this. The biggest thing is, well, you print more money. So it's printable money. How do we circulate more money into the economy is they print it. And so really for me, that just differentiates the digital currency from my dollar bill, even though there's digital aspects now of holding the money. That's kind of how I think about it. That's literally what they do. Those big bundles of cash, I always think of like the movies where they go into the safes and they take out all the money. So that's kind of my opinion on it. I don't know if we can technically say it's a digital currency yet because of that. What do you think?
I would agree with that. I would say, technically it's not a digital currency, but I think a lot of people in their minds do view it as a digital currency, and certainly the U.S. dollar, how it's backed, has changed a lot. We used to have silver certificates where you could go and trade those in at your bank for actual silver. It's not backed by the same thing anymore, and so, and to your point, I was just talking to somebody, we went to the movies the other day, and they would not accept cash as a form of payment, and so it is becoming a lot more common to not use physical cash and have it in a digital form, whether that's debit card or Apple Pay or Google Pay, whatever it is. So I would say it's definitely in people's minds becoming more of a digital currency.
So that kind of leads me to, let's talk a little bit about some specific stuff, right? Maybe a specific product. One of the fintech products that has gotten a lot of noise lately is the buy now, pay later. So basically the digital version of the Kmart Blue Light Special, or layaway, right? Talk about that in relation to, is it truly a unique thing, or is it merely an application of a buy now, pay later, layaway that we've had in the past?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily a novel idea, but the idea of being able to tie that, you can't hardly visit an e-commerce site nowadays without some form of a buy now, pay later system attached to it. And so it's again, not really a novel idea, that layaway, it's been around forever. But the ability for business owners to utilize that to become a little bit stickier, it's, a lot of them have had higher, actual close rates with customers. It creates a stickier relationship. So there are a lot of benefits for both the borrower as well as the business owner. But there are definitely some risks there as well to be aware of.
So, Kahri, do you know in kind of your research of organizations that, investing options, that kind of thing, are you privy to any information about how that sort of trend has impacted bottom lines or growth or anything like that?
Yeah, and I actually think Klarna, right, is one of the companies, and they're going public, or they just went public, one of the two there, and so it's a legitimate option for consumers. And I always say, kind of like you guys said, it reminds me of McDonald's, because they're always going to make it easier for the consumer to get the product, right? So McDonald's, they have a large fry and a large drink, and a couple of years ago they did the supersize. So you'd ask and they say, would you like to supersize that? And then you got an extra large fry and drink. And so they're always going to come out with ways for consumers, for it to be easier for consumers, more flexible, right? So as small business owners, I think my advice, again, just kind of goes back to the people I deal with right here in Mesa, is what do they do to be prepared for that? Because you're completely right. It gives them a better close rate. Yeah. They see more of their product going off the shelf, or more people buying what they're selling. The biggest thing is you just have to budget for it. You have to plan for it using these fintech tools. QuickBooks, just having that budget, having that extra layer of delinquency being there is just going to have that protection. So for me, I think it's going to be around for a long time, and I think small business owners have to prepare for it using those fintech tools, but also relationships with their banker, relationship with their financial advisor, so they kind of know what that number might be for them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I would just add to that, I see a lot of businesses that there's a new fintech solution out there. They think it's going to be great, so they sign up for it. They get it in place on their website or however it's going to be used, and they don't really look at how it's actually impacting their business in the future. And so I think if you're going to sign up for something like that as a business owner, make sure you're checking what the progress actually is. Is the cost of that solution actually adding to your bottom line, like we're talking about, or is it just there? The other thing, I think it's going to be around for the long haul as well. But with any new product, there's always a struggle with how much regulation there needs to be, and so that's something that a lot of these buy now, pay later, platforms are going through is that kind of adjustment and growth as it becomes more regulated. Same with cryptocurrency, and really anything in the fintech. Whenever there's a new product, there's always that period when it first comes out when there's little to no regulation, and then we kind of adjust and figure out how much regulation there needs to be. So I would be prepared for some additional changes and regulations to come out on that.
Let's touch on security. So there are a lot of fintech products that will position themselves to help them better manage their investments or better manage their money. What's your advice for a small business owner when this opportunity gets put before them in terms of being secure, making sure that they approach it appropriately? What questions should they ask, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I can speak to, from our side as the bank, we're a local small business as well. And so we have a full due diligence package that we do on every single third-party vendor that we engage. And so part of that is, looking at how long they've been around, what their track record looks like. If you can, talking to some other existing customers that they do have. Really just vetting them out. Every institution at some level is going to be, liable for fraud or for hackers or, everything like that that's going on. But trying to mitigate that as much as you can by doing your due diligence on the front end.
And I think so too. I think, Josh, actually, you touched on it a little while ago. Just there's so many new things coming out and just saying, hey, this is going to make a difference in your business, but not really knowing what that difference is. So just being cautious of the new shiny tool that you see, doing your due diligence. I really think in the fintech space, the first place to start here is maybe not right away looking at, oh my gosh, is this going to make a bottom line difference to my commission or, my sales, but really automating things. So looking at fintech in a way to automate your back of office So then you have more time to spend on your business, getting a business plan maybe together, and then realizing, hey, where can I spend more time educating myself on these fintech tools that may now better support my consumer, bring more people to my business. So yeah, I just think the due diligence is there. And then again, personal relationships with people, having Josh to call and say, hey, have you heard about this? Oh my gosh, yeah, one of our clients has been using it for 10 years. It's been around that long, even though it's just now you're learning about it. Coming to your financial advisor, talking to someone who's in marketing, things like that.
Yeah, and I definitely want to piggyback on the relationship aspect that you just talked about, because like I said, I've been working on the last 10 months on the integration for this new loan origination system that we're pushing out, which will go live next month. But a big part of my due diligence on the front end was that relationship piece, because I wanted to know if there was a security issue, was there going to be somebody that I could call that I knew that, knew me, knew our business, knew what product we had that could help us through that, or was it an online, FAQ page or, a 1-800 number. So that's a huge part, making sure that there's an actual person that you know at the business, even though it's fintech, right? It's all technology based, but still having that human aspect that can help you if you do get into a pinch with a security issue or anything like that.
So let's talk a little bit about, and Kahri, you kind of touched on this a little bit in this. In the fintech world right now, what do you see? Because I don't want this to be doom and gloom. I don't want this to be negative, right? What tools do you see that people should pay more attention to right now?
Yeah, guys, I think fintech is huge. I mean, the biggest thing is Fortune 500 companies forever have had access to systems that generate what their commissions or what their business outflow is going to be for the next year, or say they have a 5-year plan. They're able to project that, and now that's accessible to mom and pop businesses. This is huge. This is awesome. And really what they need to be looking for, again, is just things that automate that, things that help them understand, now they have an idea of what their next year might look like, and they can better spend time with their families because they have time freed up. They can spend money other places, whether that be with their family or financial planning, right? I think that's one of the big spaces, obviously, as a financial planner, I want to talk about is I see a lot of people that they're so scared of that cash flow, and now there's tools to let them know what that might look like, to where it frees up money where they can go, Kahri, I can finally plan for my daughter's going to turn 16 and I can get her a car. I never knew I was going to be able to do that. So these fintech options are amazing, and I think that's just where I've seen the benefit for my clients. Maybe hasn't been really in, the shiny new, like I said, but just being able to have more time by streamlining their back of office.
Yeah, no, I would agree with all of that for sure. The other thing I would say that's really big right now is embedded finance, which we talked about buy now, pay later, which is an example of embedded finance, but really anything that you can integrate into your existing software or platform that's going to enhance or increase that customer experience. So anything from, like I said, the buy now, pay later, insurance, banking, anything like that that's going to make your customer experience better is definitely something that you want to take into account. Uber's a great example of implementing embedded finance, and you can translate that, like I said, down to your local mom and pops as well. But they have it where their drivers and the passengers can get insurance through their embedded finance implementations there. You can also, obviously the customers can pay through the app, but the drivers can also access their money through accounts through Uber as well. So finding solutions like that that are really going to provide tangible value, I think, is vital. Most business owners, I know as a banker, we get bombarded every day with cold emails and calls about new fintech solutions, but I think really when it comes down to it, again, not just going for that flashy new toy, but three things I always look for is it going to make my customers' experience better? Is it going to save us on costs? Or is it going to streamline processes and efficiencies for my employees? So if it does any of those three and the value is greater than the cost, I think it's worth looking at.
Cool. So I'm going to talk about one more example before we close out here, and that is payment processing. Because for any small business, right, that's the front line, right? So your wisdom, if you're looking at options for payment processing, right, there's a gazillion of them. Yeah. What questions do you think a small business owner should ask when looking at those options?
You go ahead. I feel like you might have
I'll-
a little bit more
yeah.
opinion.
Well, I'll go first. I don't know
Yeah.
if my opinion's going to be that great. But, first, I would go back to relationship. I've seen a lot of payment processors, and a lot of times, a business owner will, sign up with a new payment processor. Everything is great in the beginning, but then slowly there's additional fees tacked on that are hidden in the contract. There's not very transparent terms, and after a year or two, they're paying double what they were before without even realizing it. And so having that relationship of trust where you know who you're dealing with, again, even though it's a technological solution, the human element is still super important. Knowing that you can trust who you're signing that contract with is one, number important. Two, that you have a point of contact that you can reach out to if there are questions or concerns. But then third, I would just say the more transparent that agreement is, the better. If it's overly complicated and there's a ton of additional language, a lot of times that's because they're trying to hide some of those things in there. So try and get as simple and transparent an agreement as you can.
Yeah. And I was just going to say a lot of those things, but also to piggyback is the integrity of the company, I think is huge. I think sometimes there's always a cheaper solution, but just like you said, sometimes then they tack on fees later on. The agreements are a little iffy. And so sometimes in certain parts of your business, it's okay to pay a little bit more. And I think these are one of those to have that integrity of a business. I mean, guys, this is how your clients, a lot of times it's their cards are getting inserted or put onto this, right? And then it's also your money that's coming to you. So how you get paid, how you support your family. So I just think the integrity is huge and the relationship, right?
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I think the only other thing that I would add as well is while payment processing in general is the same, every business is unique, how you accept payments is unique, and so make sure that you're taking the time to talk to any payment provider about your specific business, right? And make sure that they understand how your business operates, how you accept payments, so that you are getting that full picture up front. A lot of times you put more emphasis on the provider and what they can offer and not what you as the business need. And so that can create a situation where you're signing up with somebody who maybe isn't the right fit for your business.
Cool. Is there anything else you guys want to add about FinTech? Anything that you, in preparing for today's panel, learned that you might want to share?
You want to go first, or do you want the last word?
I'll let you have the last word.
Okay.
I'll go first. So I just really think, and I kind of touched on this, is what's just really amazing about FinTech, again, is just back to these companies have had access to this for a really long time, and just getting to see it roll out in the community here in Mesa and getting to hear how it's affecting my clients and how they're spending more time with their family. They're better preparing for retirement. They're spending more money on their kids rather than on their business because they're able to have this financial technology to back them. It's just really awesome to see. I think it's great that you held this today to help small business owners understand it more. And most importantly, again, is just, having relationships with people. I always say data without direction is nothing. You have to have that direction. And so putting this on and giving some people in our community direction is just great. I'm so lucky to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, ditto to all of that. Completely agree. I think the only thing I would add is a lot of times I see people in the FinTech as business owners that are either overly cautious, right? So they're too slow to adapt to these new technologies, or they're overly gung-ho and they just want every single new product available. I remember I had an employer that he changed our CRM every 6 months because there was a new and a better one out there, and he wanted to take advantage of it. And what it ended up doing was really making it harder for the employees to understand the system, utilize the FinTech properly, and it really just slowed down our business. And so you need to find that middle ground, right? Don't be overly cautious to where you're missing out on opportunities and losing to competition that is adopting these new technologies, but also make sure you're taking the time to do your due diligence, make sure there's a real tangible value that it's going to add to your business before just jumping into the next new shiny thing. And if you can find that sweet spot, then you can really utilize these FinTech solutions to your advantage and help improve your business.
On that note, thank you both. I appreciate both of you spending time with us today, talking about FinTech and how our community can engage with it and understand it and do something with it. This has been the FinTech panel for the 2025 Mesa East Valley Technology Expo. Please make sure you get a chance to get into the expo and explore the vendors. You can do that at tech25.mesa event. Just Google it. Thank you again for being here. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll talk to you soon.